They're one of the greatest discoveries in human history, a true miracle that has saved an unbelievable number of lives. But that very same miracle is now under a massive threat, creating a menace that, honestly, it affects every single one of us. So today, let's get into the story of antibiotics. All right, let's jump right in with a question I bet you've heard your whole life from your doctor, your parents, everyone. Why is it so important to finish the entire bottle of antibiotics even after you start feeling way better? Trust me, you're going to want to stick around for the answer to that one. But before we get there, to really wrap our heads around antibiotics, we've got to zoom out for a second and start with something really basic. What even is a drug? Okay, so the official definition is actually way broader and simpler than you might think. A drug is just any substance that changes the chemical reactions happening inside you. That's it. It's not just about pills from the pharmacy. And that makes a ton of sense when you think about it, right? I mean, we use them for everything, from actually treating a disease to just taking the edge off of headache, or even changing our mood by affecting how our brain works. They're these fundamental tools we use to tweak our own biology. So, with that foundation, let's zoom in on a really special, incredibly powerful class of drug. Let's talk about the miracle weapon in our medical arsenal, antibiotics. And they were designed to fight a very specific enemy.
And their job is absolutely laser-focused. They are used for treating bacterial infections, not the common cold, not the flu, just infections caused by a bacteria. And that specificity is everything.
So, where do these things even come from? Well, this is the wild part. They don't originally come from some sterile high-tech lab. They come from nature's own battlefield. Most antibiotics actually come from bacteria or fungi that are duking it out in the soil. And, of course, the most famous one of all, penicillin, comes from a simple mold. So how do they actually do it? Well, think of them as these tiny, microscopic assassins with a few different strategies. Some of them just stop the bacteria from making copies of themselves, basically freezing the invasion in its tracks. Others will mess with their internal machinery so they can't grow. And then some go for the direct approach. They cause the bacteria to literally burst open. It's a full-on targeted assault. Okay, so if these things are such amazing bacteria killers, why can't you just pop one when you have a cold or the flu? Well, it all comes down to what I like to call the lock and key problem. And this is the bottom line. The one thing you absolutely have to remember. It's a hard and fast rule. Antibiotics are specialists. They only have the key for one specific type of lock. And this slide right here shows you exactly why. On the left, you have bacteria. They're living cells with all these structures, like cell walls and membranes. Those are the locks, the very things that antibiotics are built to target. Now, look on the right. Viruses are completely different beasts. They don't have those structures, so the antibiotic key has no lock to fit into. It just drifts on by, totally useless. For decades, this miracle weapon of ours seemed pretty much unstoppable. But like in any epic story, our story takes a bit of a dark turn. Because the enemy is learning how to fight back. Which leads to a pretty scary thought, right? What happens when you're really sick? You take the medicine that's supposed to save your life, and it just stops working. Well, that nightmare scenario has a name. And it's one of the single biggest threats to global health on the entire planet, antibiotic resistance. So what exactly is resistance? Let's break it down. It's basically evolution on hyperspeed. Through a random mutation, a few bacteria might just happen to survive the antibiotic attack. Those survivors then get to multiply, passing on that resistance. Pretty soon, you've got a whole new army that the drug can't touch. We call these superbugs. And you've definitely heard of the big one, MRSA. It's a very real, very scary example of this happening right now. Okay, that all sounds pretty terrifying, I know. But here's the good news. This fight is far from over. We have a counter strategy. But, and this is the important part, it requires every single one of us to do our part. It's a collective responsibility. And you know what? The game plan is beautifully simple. It really just boils down to two critical golden rules. Number one, only use antibiotics when they're absolutely 100% essential. No, you don't need them for a cold. And number two, when you are prescribed them, you have to complete the full course. No stopping early. And right here, this is it. This is the answer to that big question we asked at the very beginning. When you stop taking your medicine just because you feel better, you've probably killed off all the weakling bacteria. But the tougher ones, the more resilient ones, they might still be hanging around. By stopping the treatment early, you're giving those tough guys the perfect opportunity to recover, multiply, and maybe even develop full-blown resistance. Finishing the course is our best shot at wiping every last one of them out.
So I want to leave you with this final thought. An antibiotic isn't just your prescription. Think of it as a precious, shared resource that belongs to all of us. And it's a finite resource. Every time we misuse them, we make them a little bit weaker for everybody. So the real question we have to ask ourselves is, are we doing enough to protect them for our kids and for their kids?